Good morning to everybody.
Morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Is everybody ready to go?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you. And Miss Federico, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Excuse me. We're on the record in the Colorado Public Utilities Commission's proceeding number 24A-0043CP-EXT. My name is Connor Farley. It is approximately 9:01 a.m. on June 27th, 2024. And this evidentiary hearing, remote evidentiary hearing, is being webcast. This remote evidentiary hearing was scheduled in decision number R24-0289-I dated May 1st, 2024. I will take appearances starting with the applicant.
Good morning, Your Honor. Sean Jennings with the law firm Ireland Stapleton, here on behalf of the applicant, Colorado Cannabis Tours.
Thank you and welcome. And I'll turn to the intervener.
Good morning. My name is Roman Lysenko, Lysenko, representing Explorer Tours and Red Rock Shuttle.
Thank you and welcome to you as well. Mr. Lysenko, in my decision R24-0230-I, I allowed you to represent the interveners here. There were a series of issues and questions that I know you're aware of regarding the standard for allowing you to represent Explorer Tours, and I made findings in that decision that I just referenced. I just want to make sure that nothing has changed with respect to you and the interveners that would alter the analysis about whether you can represent them.
Just 1 second. I believe I missed something in that decision because I was under impression, I apologize, that I can represent, because we did state it about the controversy, 15,000 and stuff like that. So, and nothing changed on that. So I still trying to represent the company, but I can open up and read real quick the decision. I thought maybe if there is any new questions being raised in that decision that we need to comply with, but usually, so nothing changed since we confirmed that I will be representing. And I answered all those main 3 questions.
Yep. So I just want to make sure that nothing's changed with respect to those questions.
Yeah, nothing has changed.
Okay. So I will stand by that decision, allow you to continue to represent the interveners or the intervener in this proceeding. So I believe both parties have filed their witness and exhibit lists and marked exhibits. Let me just ask this for purposes of planning for the day. Mr. Jennings, how many witnesses are you going to have?
Your Honor, just one, Mr. Eimer, who's here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. Mr. Lysenko, how many for you?
Just one, Your Honor.
Okay, and I'm assuming it's going to be you, Mr. Lysenko?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So with that, is there anything that you'd like, either of you would like me to address before we just jump right in? Mr. Jennings?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I would like to ask sort of 2 procedural questions. I think they're in the nature of a stipulation. So Mr. Lysenko would certainly be involved in this. But the first one is with Mr. Lysenko and Your Honor's entertaining of this proposal, is to stipulate to the territory that's at issue in this proceeding. Since the time that Mr. Lysenko filed his intervention, Your Honor issued an order limiting Colorado Cannabis's territory. And so depending on the outcome of this hearing, if the stipulation ends up being the new territory that Cannabis Tours is approved for, I think we could significantly streamline our presentation here today by agreeing with Mr. Lysenko about, based on the certificate that he has filed, his most recent certificate, what territory is at issue for today?
Okay, and let me call up that decision. That was a more recent decision. And yes, you entered into an agreement with another, now former intervener, a settlement in which you agreed to limit the territory in return for that other intervener withdrawing their intervention. Do I have that right?
Correct, Your Honor. There were initially two interveners, Aspire Tours and Explorer, and the applicant reached a stipulation with Aspire, which did limit the proposed territory, and this was filed subsequent to Explorer's intervention.
Give me just a moment. Okay. So have you discussed this with Mr. Lysenko?
We have not, Your Honor.
Okay. So I think my decision, R24-0350I, that issued on May 24th, 2024, approving the joint motion between your client, Mr. Jennings, Colorado Cannabis Tours, and Aspire Tours, it granted that joint motion, and then stated in the order in paragraphs that the application was pursuant to this decision amended consistent with what was proposed by your client and Aspire Tours. And as I understand it, in your client's application, essentially this is an extension of existing authority. And you all propose to add, I think, 4 additional counties to the scope of the authority, and those were Jefferson, Clear Creek, Larimer, and Pueblo. So that was the extent of the extension that you were seeking. In decision R24-0350-I, you propose to place restrictions on that authority as proposed in the application. And I'm okay. The first restriction was restricted against the transportation of passengers in Clear Creek County any earlier than 3 hours before the sunset each day. The second one was restricted against the transportation of passengers to/from Rocky Mountain National Park, Estes Park, and Mount Evans/Mount Blue Sky Scenic Byway. And 3, restricted against the transportation of any passengers under the age of 21 pursuant to Colorado Department of Revenue Marijuana Enforcement Division regulations. So that's what I approved. Aspire Tours request, if that was approved, to have their intervention withdrawn was approved as well. So first of all, let me just ask you if I've stated everything accurately so far.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so I mean, my view is, but I'm willing to listen to you, Mr. Lysenko, that the application is amended consistent with this decision I just cited, R24-0350-I, and adding those 3 restrictions. And that's what the hearing is on today. So Mr. Lysenko, well, first of all, Mr. Jennings, do you agree with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Lysenko, do you agree as well?
Yes, I agree with that. And the restrictions is not, those restrictions did not cover the other places that we're interested in. So that's why we're still here. That's why we still protect our territories that we serve in. But for my opening statements, I would like to bring it up, but I guess I'll save it for opening statements if the applicant ready to restrict, they always welcome, and we will withdraw the application. I mean, the intervention.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Jennings, does that answer the first more procedural type question that you had?
I think so. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. And you had one more, I believe.
Yes, just regarding exhibits and Your Honor's preference today, we pre-filed about 26 exhibits. I don't think we'll cover all of those, but we will cover, a significant portion of those. I saw Mr. Lysenko filed 3 exhibits. We would be willing to stipulate to the admissibility of all the pre-filed exhibits just to move the hearing along. As an alternative, we could go through each exhibit that we have with Mr. Eimer's testimony, but I wanted to propose a stipulation as to the pre-filed exhibits.
And Mr. Lysenko, do you have an objection to that? Are you agreeable to that?
But I believe, Your Honor, I believe the applicant doesn't have to offer into evidence all of the exhibits. So they can offer whatever they want from that list, but of course not add any new ones. So we will object if there is any new ones, but if some of them will not be offered into the evidence, we're okay with that. So there is no objections on that.
So I think what Mr. Jennings, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, you start off by saying that you may not necessarily need or cover all of the 26 exhibits in testimony today, but what you're proposing is for all of them to be admitted at this point in time. Am I right about that?
That is correct, Your Honor. And the reason why is really just for efficiency, rather than asking Mr. Eimer, every time to lay a foundation, et cetera. Given that these have been pre-filed, we're just proposing that for today's hearing.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Lysenko, I think maybe you understand a little bit better. Maybe I misunderstood you a little bit, but what Mr. Jennings is proposing is to just admit right now all 26. All
26, and I'm fine with that. So they all can be admitted. There is no objections that intervener has. So no objections, they all can be admitted.
Okay. And Mr. Jennings, I think you say that you're willing to stipulate to the admission of Mr. Lysenko's 3 pre-filed exhibits.
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay. So with that, I don't have them in, well, give me just a moment.
Judge, while you're looking, can I ask a quick question to Mr. Jennings
Yes,
about the
please.
exhibits in box? You said there's 26. I'm only seeing 100 through 125. Is there one missing? Should there be a 126?
That may be a math error. I think I was thinking 100 through 125 is 26, but if they're 25, it's only the labeled exhibits 100 to 125.
Got it. I'll move them all over. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing one. And none of them are confidential, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so
Go
ahead.
I was gonna say, same with you, Mr. Lysenko. None of yours are confidential, right?
That's right.
Thank you.
For checking.
Okay, so I was a political science major. I'm not the greatest at math, but 100 through 125 is 26 exhibits. So I'm going to go ahead and admit hearing exhibit 100 through 125, and then hearing exhibits 200 through 202. So those are admitted into the evidentiary record. So Mr. Jennings, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, give me just a moment. Okay, Mr. Lysenko, do you have anything you'd like me to address?
Not as preliminary, I guess. I do have opening statements. I would like to make the opening statement. So just in case, please don't skip opening statements. That's all.
Okay. All right. So that was my next question, is whether you wanted to do opening statements. Mr. Lysenko, I hear you. You want to. And Mr. Jennings, would you like to make an opening statement?
I will do a brief one since Mr. Lysenko is interested as well.
Okay. So as you have the burden and are the applicant, Mr. Jennings, I'll let you go first. So go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you highlighted, the applicant is here to extend its existing common carrier transportation authority. Colorado Cannabis Tours filed an application. We did receive 2 interventions from Aspire Tours and Explorer Tours. The intervention from Aspire Tours was resolved. The intervention with Explorer Tours was not resolved, and we respect that. And so that's why we're here today to talk about the proposed new service. We will have Mr. Eimer, the CEO and owner of the company, testify here today and walk us through several exhibits. We believe that the evidence will show that there is a public need for the services that the applicant is proposing in the new territory. We also believe that we will be able to show that the incumbent, in this case, the one intervener in this proceeding, Explorer Tours, the service is not substantially adequate to serve the public need, and Explorer Tours is not ready, willing, and able at all times to provide the service that Colorado Cannabis Tours is proposing to serve. And just in terms of, what we're here to talk about today, we covered this a little bit in stipulation, but as I look at the overlap and I look at the current authority that Mr. Lysenko has filed, there's essentially one issue. Mr. Lysenko provides a variety of sightseeing service. He provides a variety of shuttle service to, other areas of the state, which we are not proposing to expand into. We are proposing to expand into Jefferson County, which includes the popular location of Red Rocks. Mr. Lysenko has an authority to provide service from a specific hotel to Red Rocks, which we understand is an important aspect of his service, but we believe we'll be able to show that there is a public need and that will satisfy the requirements for approval here today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jennings, and Mr. Lysenko. You can present your opening statement.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Yoner and Mr. Jennings. So I would like to bring it up because to the applicant that I agree that overlapping territory is the Red Rocks. That's the sweet spot everybody trying to get. So we are interested. It's a big market for us. It's we're making big investments into that shuttle service. And yes, I would like to let the applicant know if he is willing to withdraw, to restrict the application from providing service to Red Rocks, we're happy withdraw the intervention. I know it's not too late until end of this probably hearing to do the oral statement, and we can oral motion, and we can do the oral motion wherever to withdraw the intervention. I'm here not to stop anybody from doing the business, and I know the business that the Mr. Eimer trying to provide is official business, and there is a place maybe somewhere for some markets somewhere to provide, but we are overlapping on Red Rocks, and if at some point the applicant decides to restrict the Red Rocks, we'll be happy to withdraw intervention. There are lots of territory that the applicant applied for. so many places he can provide such a service that he wants to provide, so many other places, and he can conduct that business and start providing that business within a month, probably filing tariffs and stuff like that. If not, we are ready to prove that the intervener and existing service provider is adequate, and we do provide a service, and we're going to raise a list of questions to the applicant in order to meet the burden of proof for these proceedings and to obtain the license.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lysenko. Let me just ask both of you. I'm assuming, well, I don't want to know about any settlement discussions whatsoever between you. Would it be worthwhile for you two to take just a little bit of time to talk further or to talk at all about settlement? That's how I'm kind of interpreting Mr. Lysenko's opening statement. We're all here now. I'm assuming not, that it would not be worthwhile. It seems like it's a pretty simple question or request. I mean, it's simple in terms of being understandable, maybe not simple in terms of what each of you are willing to do. But in any event, that's the question. I'm not willing to give you much time at all. But if you want to take a break for 15 minutes and talk, I'm willing to do that. And you would be talking without my presence. And I'm not going to be offended or upset if you say no. I think I know where Mr. Lysenko is on that question. So I'll turn to you, Mr. Jennings. I mean, it's totally it's your discretion. Again, you're not going to offend me, create any negative feelings in me if you don't want to do this. But in light of that opening statement, I'm asking.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Eimer, what do you think?
And I really don't, I mean, let's not negotiate here. Let's not talk. All I'm offering, all I want to hear about is, would it be worthwhile to take 15 minutes for both sides to talk?
Your Honor, Mr. Lysenko, Sean, thanks for giving me this time to speak on this. I'm willing to discuss the restrictions we've put in place with Mr. Lysenko in the hopes that he can understand that our operation is markedly different than his, and is not a current threat to his business model, out of respect for his request. If that pleases the court, we are happy to take 15 minutes to discuss this. At this time, I think we have come quite a long way, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. And again, frankly, I don't care whether you do this or not. So I'm just looking to see whether there's interest on both sides in doing this, in which case I'll stop this for 15 minutes and you all can talk. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to tell me a reason why. Then let's not do it. Let's not waste time. So I'm not pressuring you to do anything. I'm just giving you an opportunity. So Mr. Jennings, Mr. Eimer, just yes or no. I'm prepared just to move on right now if the answer is no. And again, I'm not going to hold it against you in any way, shape, or form if the answer is no.
Your Honor, I think 5 minutes should suffice.
Okay. All right. Let's go off the record then. And Ms. Federico, how should we do this? If
I'm trying to think.
It may be easiest, frankly, for.
Should we go off the record for this, Connor?
Yeah, and I just said that, but
I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
that's
hear.
okay. What may be easiest and the most risk-free is for all of you to turn off your video and mute yourselves and then get on the phone. I think we dealt with this before, Ms. Federico, in trying to create a breakout room, and whether that would be recorded well, I guess you can turn off the webcast.
Yeah,
But
I could also turn off the recording and turn off the webcast. I don't know if I don't know if we got an answer if breakout rooms are recorded / streamed. But I could turn off the recording and turn off the webcast.
Okay. Well, let me ask you three. I'm assuming you have each other's phone numbers. I mean, can somebody set up a call really quick rather than have us do this with still a little bit of risk that it wouldn't be completely confidential?
Yes, Your Honor, what I could do, I
Mr.
could send out a conference line to the two of you guys and just dial into that, and then we'll all be on the phone.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that? Why don't we be in recess then until 9:45? And we won't go on the record immediately in 9:45, but at least one of you come back and just tell me where things are. I mean, this seems pretty simple. It seems like, as Mr. Eimer said, you should have an answer in 5 minutes, but I'm going to give you 15. And to the extent you need to keep on talking at 9:45, just have one of you come back and say that. And then I'll continue the recess. But don't take too much time here. It seems like a simple question to me, and we need to get this hearing done today. So with that, I'm gonna turn off my video and mute myself, and you all just go ahead and have your conversation, and at least one of you come back at 9:45.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Ms. Federico, am I missing anything? Do I need to say anything else? I don't think I do.
No, I think that's fine. If anybody doesn't mute, I can mute them on my end if I hear something. So.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Jennings. I note that you're muted. So where are we going?
Thank you, Your Honor. We did appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion, but we've decided that we need to proceed with the hearing.
Okay. So let me just make sure that Ms. Wiesenthal is ready to go.
Yes,
And Ms. Federica, are you ready as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we're back on the record in the Colorado Public Utilities Commission's proceeding number 24A-0043CP-EXT. And Mr. Jennings, you may call your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our witness is Mr. Michael Eimer.
Welcome, Mr. Eimer. Please raise your right hand and answer the following question. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Please state your name for the record and then spell it as well.
My name is Michael Eimer. My name is spelled M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Eimer is spelled E-Y-M-E-R.
Thank you very much and welcome. And Mr. Jennings, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Eimer. Are you here on behalf of the applicant, Colorado Cannabis Tours?
I am.
And what is your title and role with the company?
I am the CEO and founder of Colorado Cannabis Tours.
And did you file an application to the PUC in January of this year to extend your service territory for your common carrier authority?
I did.
And with that application that's on file, is all the information and attachments there true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
They are.
And you specifically provided information about public need for the service, operational fitness, financial fitness, managerial fitness. Is all of that information true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
It is.
And since it's the end of June here, has anything changed since the time when you filed the application and all those attachments regarding those items?
It is not.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Eimer. And with your application, did you file, this would have been before you agreed to restrictions, but did you file a copy of your current authority where you currently serve?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us about your current common carrier authority, where you serve, and what your company does?
So we serve the Denver market, Denver City and County. I believe we also have Adams County as part of our territory. And what my company does is it provides tours and transportation in a fairly unique manner. This is a mobile hospitality business. This is a regulated marijuana enforcement division entity where our guests are allowed to bring their own marijuana to consume during the tours and activities that we provide. So while we work as just a regular tour operator, we have both common carry and limousine licensing, and we actually work as a mobile consumption lounge to fix the problem of tourists not having a place and residents of not having a place to consume in public. So that's the gist of what we do. We've been doing this for 10 years. And we're actually at the forefront of having formed these laws to begin with. So I'll leave it at that without going on much further.
Okay. And may I ask for Exhibit 100 to be pulled up, please?
Say that one more time, Sean. Sorry, the volume's a little low.
I'm going to ask the PUC folks to please pull up Exhibit 100.
Thank you.
I'm assuming, Your Honor, that's how this process will work. I can call out exhibits.
You can, and Miss Federico is the one who's handling that part of it. So she's pulled up Exhibit 100.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Federico. Mr. Eimer, can you tell us what this document is, Exhibit 100?
That is our PUC luxury limousine permit.
And is that in addition to the common carrier authority that you operate under?
It is.
Tell us a little bit about, after we heard that you agreed to limit your territory. Tell us a bit about your proposed expanded territory and the service that you want to provide in those areas.
Certainly. So what we have proposed to do is add Jefferson County and a number of other territories to our services so that we can provide mountain tours to the public in group bookings. So that we've also limited this to just sunset hours. So what we're trying to do is just run a very basic mountain excursion where guests can consume cannabis along that experience. We think there is a lot of demand for it. It doesn't exist in the market, and we would like to serve that.
Ms. Federico, could you please pull up Exhibit 101?
And while that's happening, let me just ask one question of you, Mr. Eimer. It looks to me, and I don't think I covered this earlier, but in the amended authority resulting from your agreement with Aspire Tours, it looks like Larimer County was dropped from the proposed expansion. Am I correct about that?
Yes, Aspire Tours was very concerned about Rocky Mountain National Park. Being a national park, I would be unable to serve it. We included a lot of territories, so we didn't have to do this again, was the essential thinking. Stuff that might be attractive in the future. Larimer fit into that window of things that I thought I could potentially use in the future, but wasn't linchpin for my operations today. And so we made a compromise to drop Larimer entirely and stay out of Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the record to the extent I didn't earlier, that the amended authority you're seeking is transportation of passengers and call-on-demand shuttle service between all points in the counties of Adams, Arapahoe, Denver, Jefferson, Clear Creek, and Pueblo counties, state of Colorado. Larimer had been included in the original application, but that was dropped. So I just want to make the record clear. So thank you for that. Go ahead, Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, Honor. Mr. Eimer, Exhibit 101 is on the screen. Could you tell us what this document is?
Yes, that appears to be marijuana hospitality businesses that have been approved in the state.
And to your knowledge, is this an official list from the state of Colorado?
It certainly seems to be.
Okay. For the benefit of, the hearing, could you please tell us about what that means, hospitality business, and could you reference the companies that are shown as holding a license?
Yes, I certainly can. So what we have here appears to be, I know most of these people, a very extensive, a fairly accurate list of folks who have been approved for marijuana hospitality licenses in the state. That's where people can bring their own marijuana and consume either via a mobile consumption lounge or a brick and mortar.
Does this list show your company as holding licenses?
It does.
And as a licensed company, tell us about the regulations that you have to comply with at the state level.
So essentially, we need to supply our routes to, like you said, the state level. We have to supply our routes 7 days in advance. Guests are allowed to bring their own marijuana. They're not allowed to consume alcohol or tobacco in the vehicles. And I mean, that's essentially it. During the consumption, the blinds have to be down so guests can't be seen consuming from the outside. It's a fairly robust regulatory structure. And again, this all regards just bring your own. So it's not even the sale of marijuana, which I know is not important to this hearing, but that is the regulatory structure we fall under. Guests are recorded the entire time. It's a very, again, secure and robust regulatory framework.
Ms. Federico, could you pull up 102, please?
Let me just ask one quick question about 101. And that is, what was the source of that document? Where does it come from? If you know, Mr. Eimer.
Oh, I believe this is right off of the state's own webpage. Yeah, so this is, appears to me, can you scroll down a little bit? It looks like this is probably taken right off of the state's MED's webpage.
And which entity within the state?
Marijuana Enforcement Division.
Okay, great. And just one other curiosity question, which is, I think you said your guests are recorded the whole time that they're consuming. Did I understand that correctly?
You do?
Is it audio and video, or audio or only video?
It's audio and video.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Jennings. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you, Your Honor. We do have a series of similar license documents to walk through.
Okay.
The next one you wanted was 102, right?
Yes, yes, please, 102. And Mr. Eimer, does 102 also appear to be a document from the Marijuana Enforcement Division database?
It does, yes.
Okay. It lists different license type. Could you tell us what this document is showing?
Yeah, that would be MED hospitality and sales licenses. I think these are approved at the state level. There is only one open at the city level. In order to be licensed and functional, you need both state and local approval. So while there are 3 here, and there were a number on the other list as well, only a handful are actually functional. So in this list, only one of these is functional.
And are these brick and mortar facilities?
They are.
And I'll draw your attention to the address column. Are any of these facilities in your proposed territory?
Not in the proposed extension territory, no.
Ms. Federico, exhibit 103, please.
And just real quick, you don't need to pull that up again, Ms. Federica. So hospitality and sales, I take it the difference is that they can sell their marijuana to their guests.
That is correct. That distinction does not exist with mobile consumption, so that you'll never have a hospitality and sales company come before you for something like this, because there's no regulatory overlap with those sales facilities. Those are basically dispensaries you can consume at. That's what those are.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Apologies again, Mr. Jennings. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, exhibit 103, please. So, Mr. Eimer, there are a series of these, that we'd like to walk through, but could you tell us what the license type on this list is showing and what that means?
Those are retail marijuana stores in Clear Creek. Those are just stores where you cannot consume marijuana, but they are retail marijuana dispensaries where you just have to be over the age of 21 to purchase marijuana.
And are those the type of stores that you could drive your customers to if they were able to legally purchase marijuana?
Yes, and they wouldn't be my customers if they couldn't legally purchase marijuana. They would all be 21 years of age. So all of my customers would be able to legally purchase marijuana from those stores, provided they brought the correct ID with them.
And are these potential destinations for passengers within your expanded territory?
They certainly are. I've actually worked with Agati at some of their facilities in Denver in the past. Yes.
And exhibit 104, please, Ms. Frederico. Mr. Eimer, can you look at the license type and then tell us what this list is?
Yep, retail marijuana cultivation facilities. I believe this is in Clear Creek County, giving the addresses. And these are where the marijuana is grown, which is a frequent destination for our tourists.
Can you explain that, you know, a grow facility being a tourist destination?
Yeah, essentially it's like a wine tour. You go in, you see the plants, you take some pictures of them. And then they go and they purchase those products to enjoy, just like you took a wine tour. You go, you see grapes grown, you buy a bottle of wine. That's your experience. You may consume that bottle of wine, depending on the tour and the regulatory structure.
Okay. And then are these all potential destinations in your proposed territory?
They certainly would be.
Next one would be exhibit 105, Ms. Frederico. Mr. Eimer, can you look at 105 and tell us what the license type is and what this is showing?
Again, that's retail marijuana stores, so I won't go into that again. We all know what that is now. And those appear to be in Jefferson County.
And are these destinations within your proposed territory?
They are.
Last one will be 106, Ms. Federico. And Mr. Eimer, could you look at 106 and describe what this is for us?
Again, retail marijuana stores. These just happen to actually 106, excuse me, these are cultivation facilities. Cultivation facilities in Jefferson County.
So are these the grow facilities where people can go tour?
Correct.
And are these in your proposed territory?
They are.
Thank you. Ms. Frederico, could you pull up 109, please? Thank you. And Mr. Eimer, could you tell us, could you look at this exhibit and tell us what this is?
This is the state of Colorado's tourism board on colorado.com. So this is the forward-facing tourism destination for travelers coming to the state.
I think, Mr. Frederico, could you scroll down a little bit? Oh, there we go. Is your company listed here, Mr. Eimer?
It is.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you see as far as cannabis tourism since you've started operating and how it relates to the service that you plan to provide?
What I see is cannabis tourism.
Well, just tell us about what that is. Most folks may not be familiar with the concept of cannabis tourism.
Certainly. So we began in 2014 with this, and basically the concept was to highlight the state's legal marijuana industry as a tourist attraction. As things have progressed over the last 10 years, we have had what I like to call a normalization of cannabis nationwide. 80% of people live within a territory where they're able to access marijuana from their home, close to their home, in some form or another. So we went from being the only location where something like this was available to one of many locations. And so, it just, things have, well, we've started off with a very, very niche targeted and specialized space. What we've specialized in is creating events and activities that are more similar to what people would do with alcohol, and targeting a market now that would prefer cannabis over alcohol. And that's the basic gist and why I liken it to a wine tour, if you will, except instead of wine, we have cannabis. So that's the general idea of cannabis tourism as I have adapted it over the last decade of my career.
And is that business model, what you're providing with your transportation service?
It is.
Ms. Frederico, could you please pull up Exhibit 111? Thank you. Mr. Eimer, are you familiar with any of the other companies that provide cannabis mobile tours, mobile transportation?
At this time, I am familiar with all of them. I know them all.
Okay. And in your understanding, do some of those also have PUC common carrier authority?
Essentially, the two operating entities that do, yes, they have the PUC common carrier authority. They both do.
Can you tell us with 111 what we're looking at?
So this is the common carrier authority for Cannabis. We actually do work with them.
So are you familiar with that business?
I am very, yep, good people.
Okay. Ms. Frederico, could you please scroll down to the second page? And Mr. Eimer, does this list the service territory for that company?
It does.
Can you tell us where that is?
Denver.
And do you currently serve Denver?
I do.
And does this authority overlap with your new proposed territory?
It does not.
So if your authority was approved, you'd go to a expanded territory compared to what we're seeing on the screen?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Frederico, Exhibit 112, please. Mr. Eimer, can you tell us what this document is?
Similar to the previous document, it is the PUC Common Carrier Authority for the other bus. Each one of these companies has one bus, one 14-passenger bus. And again, I know them well. This is the second bus that is in existence in the state.
Ms. Frederico, do you mind scrolling down to page 2? Mr. Eimer, could you tell us what that territory is showing?
They're a bit broader. They went for Adams, Arapahoe, Denver.
And are those, well, does that territory list Jefferson County?
No.
Does it list Clear Creek County?
No.
So would your proposed authority be different than what's reflected with this certificate?
For the proposed authority we're looking to expand into, yes.
To your knowledge, Mr. Eimer, do any mobile cannabis companies have common carrier authority to go into the new area where you're seeking?
No.
To your knowledge, do any PUC common carrier with MED licenses have authority to go to Red Rocks?
No.
Okay. Ms. Frederico, could you please pull up 113? And could you scroll down just a bit to the title? Perfect. Mr. Eimer, could you tell us what this document is or what it's titled?
Statewide Transportation Plan of 2020.
Do you know who issued this document?
That's issued by CDOT.
Ms. Frederico, could you jump down to page 18, please? Mr. Eimer, I'm going to direct you to the kind of box at the top where it says growth in Colorado. Could you read that or tell us what your understanding is of that information?
Yeah, yes, according to CDOT's documentation here, Colorado's population growth has seen a 42% increase, or is expected between 2015 and 2045. So just a chart that's showing the expectations in our state's population growth.
Mr. Eimer, could I draw your attention to the middle of the page where it says as the population increases?
Yes.
Could you just read that part for us?
Yeah, as the population increases, so too does the distance many Coloradans need to travel between home and work, resulting in more motor vehicle travel.
And then Ms. Frederica, one more page. Could you jump down to page 64? Thank you. And then could you scroll down just a bit towards the bottom? Thank you.
And Mr. Jennings, maybe it's just me, and I'm sorry if it is. You at the end of your sentences, I sometimes have a hard time hearing it. So if you could just speak up a tiny bit.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Eimer, could you start toward the bottom and read for us where it says as shown in figure 2.3?
As shown in figure 2.3, the biggest total population changes are expected to happen in the Front Range and Rocky Mountain area.
Okay, and then could you reference the chart at the bottom and tell us what your understanding of that chart is showing?
So from 2020 to 2045, we're looking at population increases of 7% annually up until 2030. And then 2035, we begin to drop a little bit and we go to 6, 5, and 4 every 5 years. It's about a 2 million person population increase thereabouts.
Okay, and is this Front Range area in the proposed expanded territory where you'd like to serve?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Frederico. Mr. Eimer, I'm going to ask you to drill down a little bit more into Clear Creek County. Could you just tell us about your proposed destinations and the service that you're seeking to do up there?
Clear Creek isn't really even on my radar. Jefferson County more so is.
So let's look at Ms. Frederico. Could you please pull up Exhibit 116? Thank you. Mr. Eimer, could you look at 116 and tell us what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so this is just a traffic count. Dr. Cog is a way to gather traffic count data around the state, so you can see how many cars are moving through a particular location. This particular measurement is taken on Lookout Mountain Road and Charros Drive. Now that's essentially on the way up to Buffalo Bill's grave and Lookout Mountain, very popular tourist destination. Average daily traffic volume on that road, which is surprisingly large to me, is 2,988 cars per day. It's actually like a residential road. I'm surprised it's so high, but that's what it is.
Okay. And is this on one of your proposed popular routes for service?
It is.
And can you tell us about the service that you hope to provide at Lookout Mountain?
Essentially, we would like that to be the end of our proposed mountain tour. And we would be driving right past that area and taking guests to look at the mountains and enjoy the sunset. at the end of their cannabis tour.
Ms. Frederico, could you pull up 118, please? And then if you don't mind scrolling towards the middle of the page, thank you. Mr. Eimer, can you tell us what this document is?
It looks like the state's official document on Lookout Mountain Park.
Okay. Mr. Eimer, could you read from the first sentence, Lookout Mountain Park?
Yeah, Lookout Mountain Park, home to the popular Buffalo Bill Museum and Grave, is visited by more than 500,000 people per year and holds immense historical significance with breathtaking views of the surrounding landscapes.
Thank you. Ms. Frederico, exhibit 117, please. And Mr. Eimer, could you tell us what we're looking at here?
I certainly can. This is again the same DRCOG traffic count data. It is taken directly outside of the Red Rocks box office. And the average daily traffic volume at this location is measured to be 4,908 people per day.
Okay. Could you just orient us to this map? How do you know, like, just explain where we're looking at and how you know where this measurement is?
Yeah, so you can see this town of Morrison down to the south. You can see Red Rocks Park to the west here, and essentially right there, that's the limousine loop entrance, right? And so when we have a licensed limousine that's taking people to a show, that's where we turn in. And there's just a quick shot up to the top loop from there. And the top loop is where you have the cave, and you have nice view of the city of Denver, and of course you have the famous amphitheater.
Okay. And so you mentioned a traffic count. Where is that being taken from?
It's essentially right outside of the box office.
Okay, at Red Rocks.
Correct.
And I may have missed it. Could you tell us what that's showing for the daily traffic count?
4,908 people per day. Or vehicles per day. It's more people. Vehicles per day.
Yes, I think it's vehicles. And Ms. Frederico, exhibit 119, please. Okay. Before we jump down, Mr. Eimer, can you tell us what this document is?
Yeah, it's a document sheet. The facts of Red Rocks facts. It's just general facts about Red Rocks Amphitheater. It looks like it's taken from their page.
Yeah, could you tell us who, in your knowledge, produced this document?
I believe that would be Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater themselves.
Ms. Frederico, could you please jump down to page 6? Thank you. And Mr. Eimer, can you tell us what's shown on the top right of this page?
The seating capacity of Red Rocks Amphitheater.
And what is that showing?
9,525 seats.
So is that people essentially? Is that the seating capacity for Red Rocks?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Frederico, could you please pull up exhibit 121? And Mr. Eimer, could you tell us what this document is first?
It is the same document we just looked at, facts about Red Rocks Amphitheater.
I think this will be a different.
Oh no, excuse me. I'm so sorry. No, it's very similar looking. It's their event calendar.
Okay, and is it your understanding that this was taken from the Red Rocks Amphitheater official website?
It is.
Okay. Ms. Frederico, do you just mind going to page 4, please? Mr. Eimer, I think you've looked through this document. Could you just, starting with page 4, tell us what we're looking at?
It's basically, just their events page that shows all the events they have going on. And obviously you can buy tickets right here.
Okay. And it starts at page 4. It goes for about 40 pages. What's the frequency of the events that's shown on the calendar?
Multiple to daily. We have events going on several times a day, to a daily basis at Red Rocks.
And in terms of the type of the events, what are some of the larger events shown on here or in your experience?
I mean, the concerts is what Red Rocks is known for. So, known as a musical venue, we certainly would be interested in servicing some of those concerts, especially since Red Rocks is notorious for being an outdoor space for marijuana. Marijuana is illegally consumed, and I've had multiple conversations with Red Rocks about this. It's one of those, open secrets, right? You go to Red Rocks show, smoke a joint. And we would like to provide folks a safer way to do that, at least legally.
And you mentioned this earlier, but your passengers can legally consume marijuana in your vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. Because you have an MED license?
That's correct.
And in your experience driving up, in your experience with Red Rocks, will some of these concerts approach or exceed the seating capacity?
Oh, a lot of them will sell out. Red Rocks is just, it's a world famous venue. Even though it's not the largest seating capacity, it is large, and it's on every great musician's bucket list.
And in your experience, is there a busy season that's also reflected on this event calendar?
Yeah, it's this summer season is being an outdoor venue when they're most popular.
Mr. Eimer, just to hone in on Red Rocks, based on what you told us, do you believe that there's a need for additional transportation service out there?
Yes, I do.
And why do you say that?
We've in ourselves experienced it with our limousine license. So people will, charter private limousines through us and take them to Red Rocks on a fairly regular basis during the summer. And we've seen, the shuttle services that are offered. We know there's no marijuana friendly ones legally operating there. It just doesn't seem horribly overcrowded or, like people are always looking for a ride down if they don't park in the theater. And yeah, so we've had experience within the park to know that.
Okay, Mr. Eimer, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here.
I just have one quick question. May require a little bit of an answer. I am not certainly not an expert and not really familiar with the regulatory environment surrounding the consumption of marijuana. So, Mr. Eimer, you said that consuming marijuana at Red Rocks is illegal. And I'm wondering why. What's the source? Is that state, federal?
State.
Why? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, state. Public consumption of marijuana is illegal. So you can't walk down the street drinking a beer. You can't walk down the street smoking a joint. It has to be done in private. So that leaves people for a legal manner to consume. Say if you were at Red Rocks, which is what we're talking about, right? It leaves you your car, which is an open container. So you're in your car smoking a joint, and a ranger knocks on the door and some smoke billows out in his face. You're going to get an open container ticket, if not a DUID.
Okay. Thank
And
you
if
for
you're
that.
consuming in public, you're going to get the public consumption ticket, and then you're going to get your stuff taken away from you, which is a real bummer at a concert.
Understood. So the service you want to provide is essentially, transportation service that allows people to consume marijuana along the way to concerts at Red Rocks, and then also sit in your vehicle and consume as well. Is that right?
That's definitely one of the proposals that we have. And in fact, we have limited ourselves in our stipulation to only marijuana, cannabis friendly activities. And so we won't even be approaching markets that don't. Essentially, our buses are always going to be filled with smoke. Let me just put it like that. But this is not going to be just like a tour bus. This is going to be a marijuana lounge that is operating with tour bus and PUC licensing.
Okay. Give me just a moment. So you just said, based on the amended application, that one of the restrictions is basically limited to, marijuana hospitality transportation, essentially.
Correct.
And I'm trying to figure out where that is in the restrictions. Well, do you know off the top of your head? Maybe you do not.
To my knowledge, MED licensed business operations, cannabis friendly was stipulated within those restrictions. Sean?
Well, Mr. Jennings can handle that either through you or separately through a closing statement. I mean, I see restriction number 3 is restricted against transportation of any passengers under the age of 21 pursuant to Colorado Department of Revenue Marijuana Enforcement Division regulations.
Correct.
Okay, so it's your understanding is that restriction only allows you to transport people 21 or older. And for the dual purposes of transportation plus consumption of marijuana legally.
Correct. Hence the phrasing pursuant to MED restrictions. That was the arrangement that we made with Aspire. So
Okay.
I had no intent on doing anything other than that with this extension. So it was easy to agree to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Jennings, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And this will be the last portion of our discussion, but Mr. Eimer, I'm going to turn your attention now to Explorer Tours, as they are the only remaining intervener in this proceeding. And are you familiar with the company Explorer Tours?
Yes, generally.
Okay. And in considering their intervention, have you had the opportunity to research what Explorer Tours does?
I've taken some time to just kind of take a brief look in the interests of just good business and negotiation to understand them a little bit more. Correct. Yes, I did. I have looked at them.
And we're not going to talk about any terms of settlement or negotiations, but
Correct.
Have you engaged with Mr. Lysenko about the services that he provides and about the services that you provide?
On numerous occasions.
Okay. And through those discussions, have you been able to understand the transportation service that he provides?
Yes.
Okay. And does that include within the proposed territory that you're seeking to expand?
There is some overlap.
Ms. Federico, could you please pull up exhibit 122?
All right, it's giving me an error. Give me just a second.
Mr. Eimer, could you please tell us what we're looking at here?
This is Explorer Tour's website.
Okay. Miss Frederico, would you mind scrolling down to page 2? Mr. Eimer, could you take a look at, well, just tell us what this website is showing or advertising.
Yeah, so it's Explorer Tour's website. It's just advertising the tours that they offer.
And are there destinations on here that you have already agreed to not serve?
There are
Could you tell us which ones those are?
both Mount Blue Sky and Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay. We don't have to scroll through the website because I think you're familiar with it. Does this service advertise to cannabis friendly tourism services?
No,
Does this service restrict itself to passengers only over the age of 21?
no.
Okay. Ms. Frederico, could you scroll down a bit on the same page? A little bit more, please. Okay, we can move on to exhibit 123, please. And Mr. Eimer, could you tell us what this is?
This is the daily tours offered on Explorer Tour's website.
Okay. Ms. Frederico, do you mind scrolling down to page 2? And then could you scroll a little bit towards the bottom? That's great. Mr. Eimer, could you direct your attention to Mount Blue Sky and Red Rocks tour and tell us what we're looking at here?
That is a daily tour offered for $179 a person that visits Mount Blue Sky and Red Rocks.
Okay. What is the length of the tour listed here?
It is 7.5 hours.
What's the description just to the right of that?
To the right, I can't see anything to the it's described as a sightseeing tour.
And does this tour state that it goes directly to and from Red Rocks?
No.
Miss Frederico, do you mind scrolling down to page 3? A little bit more towards the middle. Thank you. Mr. Eimer, I'm going to direct your attention to the Denver Foothills tour. Can you describe for us what that is showing?
This is a tour for $89. I believe it leaves in the morning. And it is a 4-hour tour of the Lariat Loop.
Okay. And you can read from it. Could you tell us why you're saying it leaves in the morning?
I'm familiar with it. So I know what time it takes off. I think it takes off about 9 in the morning. If you were to click book, it would show you a 9 in the morning time. But let me see. Why
don't you focus on the last sentence?
Yeah.
Thank you. The 4-hour morning tour. I appreciate that. It's a 4-hour morning tour. And so I'm just familiar with it. It leaves at 9 a.m. But like, yeah, it says it right there.
Okay. And you talked to us earlier about your proposed service to Lookout Mountain, is that right?
Yeah, yes, Lookout Mountain and Red Rocks will be part of that experience as well, but correct, yes.
And does this description of service to Lookout Mountain overlap with your proposed service?
It overlaps by the location, but not based on the time frame or market.
And can you tell us why? You
Uh,
mentioned why is it?
Yes, because we've agreed to only operate ours. You know, we won't even start meeting up with people until a few hours before sunset, and then completing our tour at sunset is the route we have mapped. And of course, just people who are over 21 who plan to consume cannabis during the tour.
And this section also lists sightseeing. Do you provide sightseeing service?
Just shuttle service.
Okay, so do you provide sightseeing service?
No.
Mr. Eimer, this is the last one. I'm going to direct your exhibit or Ms. Frederico, exhibit 125, please. And first, Mr. Eimer, do you have an understanding of what this document is?
Yeah, it's the annual report to the PUC that you have to file when you're regulated as a common carrier. It's not required for limousines.
And do you have to file this same report for your company?
Yes.
Ms. Frederico, do you mind scrolling towards the middle of the page? Thank you. Mr. Eimer, who is this report filed on behalf of?
It's Mountain Star Transportation, which is Roman.
Okay. Is
Explorer Tours and Red Rocks Shuttle are also listed as the DBA.
Okay. Mr. Lysenko signed and filed this application, or this
Appears to be, yes.
And you mentioned the DBA. Could you just repeat that for us as well?
Yeah, DBA is Explorer Tours and Red Rocks Shuttle.
Ms. Frederica, do you mind scrolling down to page 3? And then towards the bottom of the page, please. Thank you. Mr. Eimer, I'm going to direct your attention towards the bottom, item 3A. Could you read item 3A for us?
Yes, it says the total number of shuttle service passengers transported.
And what is the number?
I'm trying to move you so I can read that. One moment. 2,164.
Okay. What is your understanding of what that number is?
It's the total number of passengers transported in their shuttle service.
And is that per year?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you to read it, but is there an item below there that reflects sightseeing service?
Yes.
And are you proposing to provide sightseeing service?
No.
But you are proposing to provide shuttle service?
Yes.
One more, Ms. Frederico, on page 5, please. And then a little bit towards the middle of the page, please. That's great. Mr. Eimer, I'm going to direct your attention to item 5. And there's a box that says total number of vehicles. Could you tell us what that is stating?
5.
5 total vehicles.
5 total vehicles, yes. Of 9 to 15 passengers. So 5 moderately sized buses.
Okay. And then could you look at item number 7 and look to the number or the box about employees and tell us what that's reflecting?
5.
Does that item state that it includes drivers?
It says managers, shop, clerical, dispatch and employee drivers, yes.
And can you read the next box, independent contractor, and tell us what that states?
It says 0.
So based on this document, I'm just going to kind of sum up or ask you to sum up the total number of vehicles
5,
and the total number of employees, including drivers.
5.
Okay. Mr. Eimer, just to help close out your testimony here, based on what you've told us and what we've seen with Explorer, do you believe that Explorer's service is adequate to serve specifically Jefferson County and Red Rocks?
No,
And why do you believe that?
it's a moderately sized company, and there are thousands of people visiting each day. And it's not fathomable to me that this is sufficient in serving the demand that's out there, disregarding cannabis consumption, forgetting about marijuana consumption, which is an entirely different market. It's not adequate, in my opinion, from the evidence we've seen today.
And do you think that Explorer is ready, willing, and able at all times to provide the demand for these areas?
No, I would imagine that those buses are booked out, and people have to find other services to use, especially during the busy season.
And you mentioned cannabis consumers in particular. Do you think Explorer Tours provides adequate transportation service to consumers who want to consume cannabis?
They cannot possibly legally offer that service. That is not even remotely possible. Could it be being done illegally? Certainly. But there's no legal consumption of marijuana occurring with those guests.
Okay. And if your authority is granted, do you anticipate that your business would grow, and would you need to expand your employee base or your buses if this authority is approved?
I would imagine that if we needed to, we would certainly be able to accomplish that. We've handled times in the past with more demand, and I don't believe it would be a challenge for me at all. I know it wouldn't be, to add more buses and services and staff to accommodate more demand. So I would imagine, yes, demand would increase, and it would not be a challenge for me to meet that demand.
Mr. Eimer, I don't think I have any more questions. Is there anything else about your operations or the proposed territory that you wanted to cover today?
No, Sean, we've been very thorough. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions from me, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jennings. We're going to turn to cross-examination, but first, let's take our mid-morning break. It's approximately 10:45 a.m. Let's come back on the record at 11 a.m. So 15 minutes, 11 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is everybody ready to go?
Yes,
Same here.
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. So we're back on the record in the Colorado Public Utilities Commission's proceeding number 24A-0043CP-EXT. And we're continuing with the cross-examination of Mr. Eimer. So Mr. Lysenko, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just got a couple questions. Mr. Eimer, you applied for public transportation, public shuttle. You stated previously that Red Rocks does not allow consumption of cannabis on public. Can you comment on that? Because I totally understand the private parties, private consumption when you get in a luxury limousine and you operate under a luxury limousine and everybody is related in the vehicle and they agree to consume the cannabis, but you applied for public shuttle when unrelated passengers will be consuming marijuana in Red Rocks, which prohibits public consumption of cannabis. Can you please comment on that?
I certainly can. The license we have from the state for marijuana consumption allows for an exemption in the state law for the public consumption of marijuana when consumed in a hospitality lounge. This could be either mobile or brick and mortar. So whether the unrelated individuals are entering into a brick and mortar hospitality lounge or they're entering into a mobile hospitality lounge, both are granted the same rights by the state. Now, the city has to also opt into this. So that would be the city of Denver, where we have our local license issued. The Red Rocks Amphitheater is part of the city of Denver, although it exists in Jefferson County.
Got it. Is there any lounges, like you mentioned? I've heard about lounges in Denver that where people can go and consume cannabis. Is there any of those lounges in Red Rocks or close or in Jefferson County?
There are no lounges in Jefferson County.
Makes sense. The second question is, today you have presented one of the websites of intervener, denver-tour.com. Are you aware of the other website which called redrocksshuttle.com?
I know that you market under two brands. Am I aware of there being a website for both brands? I don't believe I have looked at your other website.
Got it. This is it, Your Honor. That's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lysenko. Mr. Eimer, let me just ask a question. I've already revealed my ignorance about marijuana regulations. Is there any research suggesting that a consumer of secondhand smoke resulting from the consumption of marijuana can become impaired based on the ingestion of secondhand smoke?
So the research is actually to the contrary, but I think I'm inferring you're probably most concerned in my mind about a driver. I know this is not to the authority, but like we did answer this question when we passed the bill because we foresaw it coming. First of all, I'll just say the answer is no. The amount of secondhand smoke you would have to ingest is extreme. Most of what it's attributed to is a placebo effect. So someone who doesn't smoke marijuana goes into a place where people are smoking marijuana and they go, oh shit, I'm going to get high. And then their mind convinces them that they do. That's generally what is believed to happen, just because the level of cannabinoids you have to ingest, you really have to ingest it in a short period of time. It's too spread out when it's in the air. So the answer is no in reality. Now, perception-wise, we wanted to be sensitive of this, and so our drivers have to remain in a separate closed compartment with separate air handling systems at all times. So we saw that one coming. 5 years ago when we made this bill, we all agreed that it was for theater, but it's politicians, we had to get this passed, right? So for theater, we created that rule. Truth be told, there's no threat.
And how did you create the separate compartment for the driver?
I mean, it was pretty easy to do because most limousines, which is what we were utilizing anyway, have separate air handling systems. And so we just ensured, where customizations needed to be made on these vehicles anyway, right? With their video systems and the GPS tracking and so on and so forth to comply with all the state regulation. But the separate air handling systems were, they were basically built in. So almost another piece of theater that we threw out there, but we said, hey, you have to do this. So somebody can't just get a school bus with an open compartment and fog it out, which is something that was happening with bus to show, which was regulated by the PUC before these laws were passed. And so we had this as almost like a here's what not to do type thing. And you got people on the school bus smoking, drinking, having a party, and then marketed as safe transportation, right? And so we said, okay, this model is gone. You can't just blaze out the driver.
Okay. And so do you only operate limousine style vehicles with pre-existing separate compartment for the driver?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. When there's smoking involved, yes, that is correct.
Okay. And what's the capacity of your vehicles?
They are 14 passenger buses. So they're relatively moderately sized.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have. So I'll turn to Mr. Jennings and ask for any redirect.
I guess just one quick question, Mr. Eimer. You testified to us that you're quite familiar with Marijuana Enforcement Division regulations, and you even have been involved in the legislative process. Do you believe that you are operating in compliance with state and local law in how you are handling these cannabis operations?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Great. So thank you very much, Mr. Eimer, for your testimony. Your testimony is now done. And I'll turn to Mr. Jennings. And you indicated at the outset that you don't have any other witnesses. That's still the case?
Yes, Your Honor.
So are you resting?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll turn to Mr. Lysenko. The case is now yours. You may present your evidence, Mr. Lysenko. And just keep in mind that your 3 exhibits have been entered into the record already. So you don't need to do that. But before you commence, let me ask you to raise your right hand and answer the following question. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. And you may proceed. And you need not do this in a question and answer format. You can just provide narrative testimony in light of the fact that you're representing the company and you're the sole witness for the company. So go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. And please let me know if I will be repeating myself over and over. It's just a little hard to tell the story without kind of leading question from the attorney, so I might repeat myself. So I will try not to. So my name is Roman Lysenko, and I'm the owner, sole owner of Explorer Tours and Red Rock Shuttle. We've been operating for 4 years as a common carrier and for 13 years as a luxury limousine company. So we have professionally built websites, Red Rock Shuttle, Denver-Tour.com. We use professional dispatch system to operate, professional software to manage all the bookings. We use GPS trackers for all our vehicles. We have currently reserved for transportation to Red Rocks and back, we have 6 Sprinter vans. It's 7 vehicles total. It's 6 Sprinter and transit vans and 1 motor coach, 56 passenger.
So, Mr. Lysenko, let me just interrupt you. There was, I don't remember which exhibit it was, but it was the report that you filed on behalf of Explorer Tours. It was for, my interpretation was, information accurate as of the end of 2023. It listed only 5 vehicles. Have you obtained 2 more vehicles since then?
Yes, Your Honor. We did purchase 2 more vehicles, and keep in mind that the report is only applies to the vehicles that you're using for the shuttle service. Since we carry charter license, we carry the luxury limousine license, we carry common carrier license. So the report that the applicant showed today, that's the vehicles that being used for shuttle service, and that's the drivers that being used for shuttle service. We have a bigger team, a larger team. We have larger fleet. All our fleet is paid off. We have over 700,000 fleet paid off right now. We have finances to add on to this fleet in case if we will get close to our limits in our resources. We will be happy to buy some more. We have liquidity on our in our bank accounts. We have options to lease. We have options to obtain other loans to get as well in addition to that. So we can do that in case if we will get closer to the limit. However, we did not reach that limit yet. So we still actually are operating not even close to the limit right now. Just 1 second. All right, and as operating under both licenses, luxury limousine and charter license, that's the limited regulated carrier license for private parties only, and the common carrier for public. I can tell that actually right now after the COVID, actually the demand shifts towards the private transportation. That's what our records and statistics shows. So the public transportation does suffer right now. So we do have some of the days when we have only, like today, we actually have only 20 seats booked for our Red Rocks shuttle, and we've got a total capacity of 140 seats available for today to book. So we actually are not even close to our limits.
So, and just a point of clarification, Mr. Lysenko, when you refer to public transportation, you're referring to transportation pursuant to your CPCN. So, in other words, shuttle or sightseeing service. Do I have that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And when you refer,
common carrier.
Okay, got it. And when you refer to private transportation, you're talking about transportation pursuant to your luxury limousine permit?
And charter. Yep, charter bus. Yep.
Got it. All right, thank you.
I would like to testify that we do have overlapping territory with the applicant, and that's the Red Rocks. The Red Rocks is the major destination for us, and we invested a lot, and we trying to keep it up to date. We're trying to keep our fleet up to date. The oldest vehicle in our fleet is 2018 at this moment, and we keep updating the vehicles. I've done lots of research about marijuana consumption, and I did consider that as well as the part of the tour business, and because we do operate as a tour company through the day, and we operate as a shuttle company to concerts at night. So we did consider that, but everything I've heard from my customers and from people that have been providing that service, that there is not much demand for public consumption on public transportation, on public shuttle. So people are happy to consume with their friends, with their parties that they know how their bodies react. They consumed it previously, so they know what to expect from people they consume it with. But when you're stuck in the vehicle on the highway moving, and you consuming with the customers that completely unrelated, and you don't know what effect that may have on a other person that you never seen, it's a stranger, and how that body will react. And you cannot simply open the door and exit like from the public lounge we've been talking about on the streets. It's different. So my research on that been showing that there is not much demand for that. I would say probably nothing, like very little to none, pretty much demand for that. And that's why there is no one testifying today. There is no proven demand for specific service that applicants trying to provide right now. And that's why we didn't do that.
So basically what you're saying, so I understand this, Mr. Lysenko, you believe that while there may be demand for the type of service being sought here, in other words, transportation in a vehicle in which you can consume legally marijuana, the demand is primarily, if not exclusively, for luxury limousine service that allows that versus in shuttle service, for example. What you've been referring to is public transportation, and meaning that unrelated people can be transported in the same vehicle. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, you are correct, Your Honor. And I apologize if I keep splitting up as private and public. I should probably name it as a luxury limousine license or common carrier license. So I will do that in the future. We simply there is no demand for public consumption. There is another thing which stopped us from providing service at Red Drugs like that is the rules. The rules and laws unclear right now. So there is no clear law that the public shuttle can provide such a service, common carrier can provide such a service at Red Drugs. When the vehicle comes and rolls into a Red Drugs, the doors open up and it's a fog out vehicle, and the smoke coming out on the streets where the smoking on public is prohibited at Red Drugs. So that's another thing which been stopping us from providing such a service. So that's why we did not actually, we don't provide at this moment, but we are happy to provide that if there would be a demand for that. We have ability to add on vehicles. We have ability to do a driver partition to a vehicle, so the driver will be separated from the passengers. We're happy to obtain the licenses for that and just provide that such a service. But as far as I know right now, there is no demand for that, and there is no proof of demand in this proceeding as well. And this is it. Thank you so much for allowing me to testify in my free speech forum. Thank you so much, Your Honor. I'm ready for cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Lysenko. Mr. Jennings, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Frederico, could you pull up Exhibit 200, please? Thank you. And good morning, Mr. Lysenko. I don't think I'll have too many questions. Can you tell us what this is, Mr. Lysenko?
This is the authority letter from Public Utility Commission. That's what we hold. Yep, that's what we operate under.
Okay. And is this a common carrier authority?
It is.
Okay. I'm going to, just ask you a few questions about this. Section 1 allows call on demand sightseeing service. Is that right?
That is correct.
Section 2 allows call on demand shuttle service. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And you're familiar with PUC rules in this area. Sightseeing service is different from shuttle service. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct.
And you've also talked about luxury limo and private service. Is luxury limo and private service different than common carrier service?
Yes, definitely. It's completely different.
Okay. So that's number 1 and 2 on your authority. Number 3 on your authority has a specific origin and destination between a specific hotel and Red Rocks. Is that right?
You missed the Denver County. So there is Denver County and specific hotel on one hand, and the Red Rocks on another hand.
Okay, so correct. So this authority speaks to Denver County, a hotel in Golden, and Red Rocks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And this authority doesn't allow you to serve throughout the entirety of Jefferson County. Is that right?
Yes, you're correct.
And this authority doesn't allow you to serve shuttle service in Clear Creek County. Is that correct?
Yes, you're correct. It doesn't.
Okay. Mr. Lysenko, we have talked a lot about cannabis today and cannabis regulations. You don't operate a licensed cannabis hospitality vehicle, do you?
Can you please specify what that means?
Sure.
I'm not sure what vehicle is that.
Okay. Do you hold a marijuana enforcement division license?
I don't.
Okay. And you said that you would, you thought about getting into that industry. Do you know what the state law requires to qualify for one of those licenses?
I did. I went over. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what the local laws would require to obtain a cannabis mobile hospitality license?
Yes, I do. I went over the list. Yes.
When did you go over those regulations?
Not sure, maybe like half a year. So I'm not sure if it's current or not, and if I can name all of them or not. But yes, I saw the list.
Okay. But as we sit here today, you don't have that authority and you're not seeking that authority. Is that right?
Right now, no.
Okay. Mr. Lysenko, we talked a lot about Red Rocks. I know that's relevant to your business. Mr. Eimer talked about seating capacity at Red Rocks and an event calendar at Red Rocks. You don't have any reason to dispute the accuracy of that information, do you?
No, I don't.
And just kind of with rough numbers, that said that about 9,500 people is the seating capacity at Red Rocks. Is that right?
That is correct. We provide tours right there. I know exactly how many seats and the link of those seat benches at the Red Rocks.
Okay. And would you agree, based on that calendar, that from May to November, there is an event every day or almost every day?
Yes, except Monday is still in Thunder Rock. Yes, you're correct. We're serving every single concert or event at the Red Rocks. Yes, you're correct.
And I'm not a math expert as well, but if I told you that if we multiplied the daily capacity, which is 9,500, you know, in that time period, May through November, that's 1.9 million people. Would you have any reason to disagree with that?
No, no reason. Your statistics are great. They're great general information.
Okay. And you provide transportation out there. Each day, how many vehicles do you think provide transportation to Red Rocks?
I don't know. It's hard to say thousand maybe. I'm not sure, hundreds. I don't know.
Thousands, roughly.
Probably Uber, Lyft, taxis, limas, private party buses, shuttles, all kinds of. Yes, so thousands. You're correct.
And let's drill down, you know, we looked at and you run a good business. How many people could you theoretically bring out to Red Rocks each day with your current shuttles and your current employees? How many people per day?
Right now we're staying at 140 capacity. We did just close the deal today in the morning before that to get another 28 passenger. Well, but 140, answering your question.
Okay, 140 passengers per day, potentially.
Mhm.
Okay.
Was that a yes, Mr. Lysenko?
I apologize, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And you already testified to this, but you don't, and you mentioned you have a different website, which we didn't look at, but you don't advertise that you're a cannabis focused transportation service. Is that right?
That's right, I don't.
Okay. And you don't seek to provide cannabis focused transportation service in Jefferson County or Clear Creek County. Is that right?
Not until I will see a demand. Once there is a demand, we will provide that. And right now we don't provide that.
Okay, but I thought we just said that 9,000 people at least just go to Red Rocks per day. Isn't that right?
Yes, but it does not apply to a demand. For some reason, don't put 9,500 people going to Red Rocks in the same sentence with demand. There is no proven demand between 9,500 people going to Red Rocks and demand for applicant service. There is no, don't put that in the same sentence.
Okay, but you said that potentially thousands of vehicles are going to Red Rocks per day. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
And do those vehicles have passengers in them?
Of course, yes.
And are some of those passengers probably attending those concerts where there's 9,500 available seats?
You are correct.
Okay. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jennings. I don't have any questions for you, Mr. Lysenko. So thank you for your testimony as well. And your testimony is now completed. So, Mr. Lysenko, are you resting your case?
Yes, Your Honor. I am
Okay.
resting.
Thank you very much. So let me turn back to Mr. Jennings. Mr. Jennings, do you want to put on a rebuttal case?
We do not feel the need to, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the evidentiary record. So next question for you two is whether you want to provide oral closing statements. We can do oral closing statements. You could not do oral closing statements or closing arguments, sorry, and submit a written statement of position, or we could do neither. So let me ask you, Mr. Jennings, what is your preference?
Thank you, Your Honor. We would appreciate the opportunity to provide a written statement. We've covered a lot of exhibits, and this is a very important proceeding for Mr. Eimer. So we would appreciate an opportunity to submit that in writing. We could do it relatively quickly, to, keep this proceeding moving along, but that would be our preference.
Okay. Mr. Lysenko, what's your preference?
Your Honor, I would love to give oral closing argument instead of statements of position, writing long statements of positions. So I would love to just do the closing statement right now, and this is it.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Mr. Lysenko. Do you have any objection to the applicant providing a written statement of position? I would allow you to give an oral statement or a closing argument now, but they wouldn't do an oral closing argument, and they would submit a written statement of position. Do you have any objection to that?
Well, just 1 second.
Sure, take your time.
No objections, Your Honor. They can write the statement of positions based on my closing argument. So no objection. They can write that later on.
Okay, so I understand your point, Mr. Lysenko. And I tell you what, I do think that the fairest thing to do here is just to have oral closing arguments. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Jennings. This isn't a very complicated proceeding. We deal with a lot of these. So I'm familiar with the law. I'm familiar with the record here. It's not that extensive. I don't think I need a written statement of position. So why don't we go ahead with closing arguments, and Mr. Jennings, you can go first. You should go first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Based on the evidence and testimony today, Your Honor, we believe that the applicant has satisfied its burden. As I review the record here today, the applicant filed an application that contained attachments and information about managerial fitness, operational fitness, all the requirements to obtain approval. Once 2 interveners came into the case, Aspire Tours and Explorer Tours, they put certain things at issue in this case. Aspire Tours was able to reach an agreement with the applicant about limiting service. We heard that through Mr. Eimer's testimony and the stipulation that Your Honor approved, that was a significant limitation on service. Colorado Cannabis Tours deleted an entire county from its application. Colorado Cannabis Tours agreed to not serve several very popular destinations, which it otherwise would have if it had its authority approved. And that includes Rocky Mountain. Mr. Eimer testified about cannabis, but it certainly could still drive folks up to Estes Park in that area if they had not agreed to that restriction. And Mount Evans, and a time of day, every single day restriction in Clear Creek County. And then finally, which Mr. Eimer testified to, they have agreed to only serve, they've agreed to serve the segment of the population that needs and demands service for mobile hospitality lounges as licensed by the Marijuana Enforcement Division. Colorado Cannabis Tours has a few different authorities, but one of which is Common Carrier Authority. We also saw the admitted exhibits of at least 2 other companies who provide the same type of service, which is common carrier with the marijuana overlay, in a completely different territory. I think through Mr. Eimer's testimony, we have, and just so to wrap up that piece, Your Honor, from what I can tell, the following things are not at issue. Expired and their issues have been addressed. Through the intervention of Explorer Tours, the only thing that Explorer Tours has put at issue is the alleged overlapping service territory. Explorer Tours has not brought into question financial fitness, operational fitness, anything else that we have filed with our application and attachments that warrant approval of the application. So we're narrowing down the issues, you know, from the very start of this proceeding to where we are here today. And it is Explorer's Tours' burden as the proponent of its intervention to prove its case, essentially. And they've only called into question a very small segment of the proposed authority. We looked at Explorer Tours' current authority, which was recently limited, and the first box is sightseeing service. Mr. Eimer is not seeking approval for sightseeing service. That's a different authority. The second category was shuttle service, and the proposed territory is not where Colorado Cannabis Tours is seeking to serve. That's between Denver and Pitkin and Eagle counties. So different territory, different market. We do believe that Mr. Lysenko has put at issue the service of Red Rocks, and that's it. Mr. Lysenko just testified that he doesn't have authority to serve Jefferson County broadly. He doesn't have authority to serve Clear Creek County broadly. He's not raised an issue about the remaining counties in Colorado Cannabis Tours application. And so, you know, thankfully, Mr. Lysenko has admitted and helped us narrow down where we stand. So we believe, based on Mr. Eimer's testimony and the variety of exhibits about the overall service, Mr. Eimer for Colorado Cannabis Tours has proven that there is a, and Your Honor's going to be quite familiar with the Durango transportation case and all of the, I'll call them the Estes Park line of cases about what you need to show in these types of proceedings. And I believe that the evidence demonstrates that Colorado Cannabis Tours has proven that there is a public need for the service that the applicant proposes. The applicant does propose to serve these counties, and he also proposes a specific type of service. And we've heard a lot of testimony today about what that service is, what Colorado Cannabis Tours provides to the traveling public, which is a specialized type of service. I don't even think, well, Mr. Lysenko answered this for us on cross-examination. He apparently looked into providing this service, but decided not to. And he doesn't seek to serve it. He doesn't currently provide it, and he doesn't seek to serve he doesn't seek to provide the same service that Colorado Cannabis Tours does. So that would be the first factor. As regarding public need, you know, just to hone in on Red Rocks, I think through the evidence discussed by Mr. Eimer, including the traffic count, to take one piece of hard data, you know, with all due respect, Mr. Lysenko can say that there's no need and demand all he wants. What we've put into the record is hard evidence that there are at least 4,000 vehicles approaching that specific point every day. We've also put into evidence the Red Rocks seating capacity. We've put into evidence the Red Rocks event calendar during the busy season of May through November. By rough math, that's 1.9 million people. Mr. Lysenko admitted that a lot of those folks are traveling by vehicle. A lot of those folks are traveling by paid passenger transportation. And Mr. Eimer is in the transportation industry. He testified to that's been his experience. Mr. Lysenko testified as a owner in the industry that a significant portion of those folks are arriving via paid transportation service. Mr. Lysenko testified that at maximum, he could get about 140 passengers to Red Rocks per day. There's just on bare facts and on the record that's been presented, that is not adequate service for the traveling public to that destination. So, you know, I know Mr. Lysenko disagrees, but the evidence today shows that there is a significant demand. Mr. Eimer testified that he is willing and able to serve that demand. And we don't believe that, so we believe that Colorado Cannabis Tours has fulfilled its burden of what it needs to show regarding the public need, the substantial inadequacy of the current service Explorer Tour. We're only talking about one shuttle company in this proceeding. We're talking about Explorer Tours' ability to adequately serve, you know, the 9,500 people that's been documented. That does not include folks who are just visiting Red Rocks on a particular day in the morning to go hiking or walk around, which Mr. Lysenko testified is quite common. So those are the bare minimum numbers that we've presented. And the third category is whether Explorer Tours is ready, willing, and able at all times to provide the service that Colorado Cannabis Tours seeks. Explorer Tours does not provide the service that Colorado Cannabis Tours seeks because it does not provide MED licensed hospitality service, and it cannot conceivably serve the number of traveling public that's going out to Red Rocks. And for those reasons, we respect Mr. Lysenko's ability to proceed in this proceeding, but we don't think that he has prevailed in his burden as the intervener to show why our application should be denied. And Your Honor, therefore, we believe that our application should be approved with the significant restrictions that we have agreed to and that have been filed in this proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a few questions for you, Mr. Jennings. One is, I take it your position, and Mr. Eimer testified to this, and I take it that you would support this, that the only way to provide transportation service in which customers are permitted to consume marijuana in the vehicle is pursuant to this MED license that you referenced. Do I understand that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. And the record reflects that Mr. Lysenko's companies do not have such a license. Am I understanding that?
That is correct, Your Honor. And, you know, just a point to the record, we provided the list of currently licensed companies. His company is not on that list, and he testified that he doesn't have an MED license.
Got it. And then, you know, I asked Mr. Eimer about the amended authority that's being sought, and that was the amendment after the agreement with Aspire Tours. And he pointed to the third restriction as restricting, thus requiring the applicant here to only provide shuttle service to folks who are 21 or older and who have basically the intent to consume marijuana in the vehicle providing the shuttle service. I think that's the state of the record. Do you understand the amended authority to place that restriction on the applicant?
I do, Your Honor. You know, at the outset of with filing the application, he filed broadly to serve the entire territory. He did agree through the stipulation to place those restrictions, which I note is quite common. You know, if we do get an intervener type posture in these proceedings, restrictions are a common outcome. And so, as Mr. Eimer testified, what he sought to do was, limit himself to the type of service that he is seeking to provide, to satisfy at least one of the interveners.
So, and in other words, what I'm looking for is to the extent the applicant provided shuttle service to, for example, Red Rocks, to customers who had no intent to consume marijuana on the vehicle providing the shuttle service. Would that be a violation of the amended authority?
You know, that's a great question, Your Honor. And we potentially could have worded this differently, but what I would say is Colorado Cannabis Tours has an MED license to do this specific service. And so it's inherent that that's what that's their business, is to operate in this fashion. So under the law, I think passengers could come along in that vehicle, in Mr. Eimer's MED licensed vehicle, and go to Red Rocks, for example, or an expanded service territory, whether they consume or not. So another way to put that is, if someone wants to come on Mr. Eimer's cannabis themed tour, or go to Red Rocks for a specific day, they can come on that vehicle, regardless of whether they personally are consuming or not.
Okay, and so Mr. Eimer, I'm sorry, but we've closed the evidentiary record. This is up to Mr. Jennings and Mr. Lysenko are the only ones allowed to talk at this point. We're in closing argument mode. One thing I would imagine that Mr. Lysenko is worried about is, the applicant using the amended authority to just provide essentially general shuttle service to Red Rocks. And I understand that you can't force customers to consume marijuana in the vehicle in which they're being transported. But I mean, that's one scenario. If you keep, if you're marketing to and intending only to provide service to customers who have the intent to consume cannabis in the vehicle in which they're being transported, versus marketing and seeking customers who have no such intent. In other words, just providing general shuttle service to Red Rocks. And so I don't completely understand your answer. I completely understand that the applicant could focus exclusively on that submarket of people who want the transportation, the shuttle service, and they want to consume marijuana on the vehicle. So I can understand that intent, but there's a limit to what Mr. Eimer and his employees can do in determining whether that's the actual intent of customers. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm concerned about is, does restriction number 3 in the amended authority require the applicant to seek to provide shuttle service to folks going to Red Rocks who have the intent, stated intent, to only consume marijuana, and not, in other words, not opening this up to just a general shuttle service like Mr. Lysenko's service. Do you understand my question?
I do understand your question and your concern, Your Honor, and I think to just put a very fine point on it, and I think this is what Mr. Eimer testified for quite a long time this morning. He markets to the cannabis consumer segment of the population, That's who his company seeks to provide shuttle service for. It does happen that Red Rocks is a very popular destination to go for that service and for others. So I think Mr. Eimer, and I see him raising his hand because this is his business, but I think there is quite a distinction in what we're proposing. And it's the service that requires the MED licensure, and it's marketed exclusively to that customer population. It is not a general shuttle service for all purposes. And that's what we tried to show with Mr. Lysenko's service, is to say he's doing something different. His service is general. It includes sightseeing. It includes going to Mount Blue Sky over the course of 7 hours. So sorry for the long answer, Your Honor, but that's precisely what the proposed service is a service marketed to cannabis consumers, and the transportation is provided with that MED license.
Okay, thank you for that. Last question. There are a few exhibits that I'll refer to generally as traffic count evidence. And I should have asked this question of Mr. Eimer, but does the record reflect specifically what traffic that's counting? In other words, it appeared to me, based on my recollection of these exhibits, that this traffic count, it was counting traffic traveling north-south on, I can't remember the name of the road right outside of Red Rocks. But in other words, that that road that goes down to, goes north-south, rather than the road that is basically the entrance to Red Rocks, and proceeds up to the amphitheater. Do you understand what I'm asking? I'm trying to figure out whether it was counting basically vehicles traveling north-south on that public road, or counting vehicles that were going in the entrance to Red Rocks and proceeding up to the amphitheater. And if you don't know, you don't know, and go ahead.
Yeah, Your Honor, I think what we were intending to show with both of those, first, just with the Lookout Mountain, that is a very specific point. This isn't like Google where you like drop a pin anywhere. These are dedicated, located traffic count mechanisms, and they're around certain popular areas. So, you know, we showed the Jeffco point up at Lookout Mountain. Mr. Eimer testified that that's exactly on his proposed route. That's how you would go to Lookout Mountain. With regard to Red Rocks, you know, Mr. Eimer is familiar with it, and I think his testimony was that that is actually the entrance. That's where paid passenger transportation comes when those rides are being picked up and dropped off at Red Rocks. So that's our understanding of the exhibit. You know,
yeah, and I think I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the evidence is not entirely clear. I remember Mr. Eimer's testimony that it was at the entrance to Red Rocks, but then the next question is, which way is it pointed, and what traffic is it counting at that entrance? I mean, what I'm asking ultimately is, can I conclude that the number cited on that exhibit is traffic going into the entrance of Red Rocks, or is that just traffic proceeding north-south on that road, whichever one it is that leads into Red Rocks? And I don't think the evidence is clear on that. And that's, I'm interpreting what you're saying as the evidence didn't specify on that, the question that I'm raising. Is that a fair characterization?
I think so, Your Honor, but I do think Mr. Eimer testified, because he's a transportation operator. He's operated under his luxury limo permit. He's been doing this for 10 years. I do think he testified that that pinpoint is actually within Red Rocks Park, and that's where paid passenger shuttles go. Now, I guess I should clarify, that's all vehicles. that's a vehicle count, but I do think that's what his testimony stated.
And so I will have the transcript when I'm writing my recommended decision. And to the extent this matters, I will look at it very closely to make sure that I characterize the evidentiary record correctly. So those are all the questions I have, Mr. Jennings, and I'll turn to, and thank you for the closing, and I'll turn to Mr. Lysenko for his closing.
Thank you, Your Honor. So PUC divides passengers in two categories only. There is private groups, related customers, chartering parties for under the transportation company transport under luxury limousine license or limited regulated carriers, and public groups, that's the unrelated passengers. So when the applicant trying to provide transportation or service to unrelated passengers in the authority that we're already serving, he is trying to provide service to our customers. This is our customers. There is no way that PUC can define only passengers that consuming cannabis. If cannabis, this world is become normal, and consuming cannabis or marijuana is standard like consuming caffeine or alcohol, it should be treated as a personal preference. If the passenger would like to consume marijuana on the vehicle on board, or don't want to consume marijuana. If the passenger would like to drink coffee, or don't. If the passenger would like to watch the TV, or don't. If the passenger would like to be driven in a white vehicle, except of the black vehicle. So it becomes a personal preference of the passenger. The PUC have no way that PUC can actually check and investigate if consumers or passengers actually smoking marijuana in applicants' services. There is no way to divide that. So, and just to remind, the applicant has the burden of proof, only applicant. The intervener already met that burden of proof when he got the license. So the applicant has the burden of proof pursuant to the rule 723-1-1500. The applicant must provide 5 things. There is managerial fitness, financial fitness, operational fitness. There is a proof of public need for applicant's service specifically. And if there is overlapping territory that we have as a Red Drugs, as we both testified, there has to be the proof that the existing service provider substantially inadequate. So there are 5 things. So everything that the applicant filed with the application, it's not in this proceeding. I just want to remind that to the applicant. Only the evidence that been admitted today in these proceedings are in these proceedings. Up to this date, up to this critical moment, there is pretty much no record of financial fitness, none. I can say there is maybe an applicant actually met burden of proof on managerial or operational fitness because he had some experience in the past. But as far as financial fitness, there are not even a testimony from the applicant. There is nothing on the evidence, nothing on the record showing documentary evidence of financial fitness. Furthermore, there is another thing is proven demand, or there should be a proof of demand for the applicant's service. So none of the evidences that been admitted shows that all those 9,500 people, or all the vehicles that enter in Red Drugs, will be using applicants' services. None. There are several companies, several ways. There is at least 7 or 8 different types of the way the passengers can get and get out of Red Rocks. So, and counting them all and say they will, or a portion of them will use applicant service, that's the applicant is assuming what's going to happen, but assume fact, not an evidence. Furthermore, the current existing service provider is actually not reaching even close to, not operating even close to the limits. The existing service provider willing and able to provide the service to Red Rocks, transportation service to Red Rocks to unrelated passengers.
So you're talking about your company, right, Mr. Lysenko?
Yes.
When you
yes.
say existing service provider.
Yes. The intervener, yes, I apologize. The Mountain Star Explorer Tours or Red Rock Shuttle willing and able to provide service to unrelated customers, public shuttle service to and from Red Rocks. So there is no proof up on the record that there is actually a deficiency in existing service provider. There is no proof that actually the existing service provider substantially inadequate, not just operating black vehicles so doesn't have TVs or not allowing smoking people in the vehicle. Some people would like to smoke, some people don't like to smoke. The other people like to consume alcohol in the vehicle. The other one don't like to consume alcohol. They all have ability to smoke before or after. They have ability to do that anywhere. Eat the gummies on the way, and nobody will see that. There is several ways. There is a route. It's only 35 minutes from the Denver County to Red Rocks. For that 35 minutes, it's a personal preference, what they want to do. It's not need or convenience for them to consume or don't consume something. The other thing is, the other issue that being raised in this proceeding is the legal issue that Red Rocks actually prohibits the consumption of marijuana and cannabis, public consumption. So the vehicles will be there. There is no previous records that there is any launches or anything at Red Rocks providing actually service that the applicant trying to provide to public. So it's been prohibited for the reasons. So there are several things that I think that first of all, the applicant did not meet burden of proof simply for 3 things out of 5. And secondary, and then there is the legal issue as well that comes up.
So let me just understand, Mr. Lysenko, you're saying that Red Rocks prohibits the consumption of marijuana even in a vehicle like the applicant's that has a license, or I'm not sure exactly how to state it. I don't remember what it's called, but basically permission from the state and the locality. You're saying that even with those permissions, Red Rocks would prohibit the consumption of marijuana in the applicant's vehicles if they were allowed to provide the transportation?
No, Your Honor, that's, I believe, not what I'm trying to say. I apologize.
Okay.
I was broad in my argument, but the Red Rocks prohibits consuming marijuana in the park, actually on the streets. But since the vehicles are not isolated, since the vehicle open the doors, passengers have an option to open up the windows or doors. All the smoke will be coming up when the group of exiting the vehicle or entering the vehicle. The smoke will get on the streets where it is prohibited.
And let me ask you this, Mr. Lysenko, just following up on what you just said. So is there any evidence in the record about whether the windows in the applicant's vehicles can be opened by the passengers?
You're correct. No evidence, but
Okay.
there is
Okay, thank you. So one other follow-up question. So my understanding of what you're arguing is that the applicant has met its burden with respect to operational fitness and managerial fitness, but not met its burden with respect to financial fitness or the substantial inadequacy of the current transportation and the public need for the transportation that's being proposed here. Do I understand this correctly?
Yes, you're correct, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
So just to summarize that, there are no grounds to issue another license. And in this matter, dismissal is appropriate. Thank you so much, Your Honor, and I'm done with my closing statement. I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lysenko. Mr. Jennings, you didn't reserve time for rebuttal, but in light of the fact that you wanted to write a statement of position, I'm willing to give you a little bit of time to do rebuttal if you choose. You don't have to, but it's up to you. And of course, it would be limited to Mr. Lysenko's rebutting Mr. Lysenko's argument.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Lysenko, in his closing, is essentially trying to make this about cannabis law compliance, which he's not an expert in, which Mr. Eimer testified that he's been in the licensed and compliant cannabis space for several years. He's familiar with the laws and rules, and in fact, was instrumental in the legislation that allowed this type of activity to happen. Whether passengers can roll up the windows or not, that was not part of any discussion at this hearing. Mr. Eimer testified that he does operate in compliance with all state and local laws. So it's really a red herring. And Mr. Lysenko made comments about, society, in relation to smoking marijuana, and all that is irrelevant. Colorado Cannabis Tours is providing a focused service on the cannabis consuming segment of the public. With regard to Mr. Lysenko's comments about the burden here, the applicant has filed an application that sets forth several different components which are drawn from the law and the PUC rules, and that application includes information about managerial fitness, financial fitness, operational fitness. At the beginning of the hearing, I asked Mr. Eimer if all of that information was true and correct. I asked him if anything had changed in the last several months, and the testimony was no. Mr. Explorer Tours, if you review their intervention that they filed after the hearing, you will see that he put one specific thing at issue. He contested one component of the application, which was the alleged overlap in service and how it would divert traffic and cause issues with competition. So that's the issue before us here today. And that's why we tried to focus our presentation and not talk about the counties that weren't at issue, not talk about the burden or the factors regarding common carrier authority that that were not raised at issue in the Explorer Tours intervention, and which Explorer Tours put on no evidence. I didn't hear any questions about from Mr. Lysenko about financial fitness, for example, until he raised it on his closing argument. So just in response to that, Your Honor, I do think we've met our burden. I think when it comes to the intervention, we have proven that the need for service at Red Rocks is not being substantially met by Explorer Tours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And that brings this hearing to a close. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. I'm not going to issue a ruling now. I have to issue my rulings in written form. So I'm going to take time to do that, to review the evidentiary record, including the transcript of the hearing here today, and then issue a written decision, which will be called a recommended decision. Most of you, I think all of you probably know that. But my decision will be a recommended decision. I will be recommending the decision to the commissioners of the Public Utilities Commission. And once that issues or mails, whoever is dissatisfied with my ruling will have 20 days to effectively appeal. Our appeal is a written document called exceptions. So you'll have 20 days in which to file exceptions to my decision. And then the commissioners, the 3 commissioners, will take up the exceptions at one of their weekly meetings. So my decision is not the end of the road. There will be further opportunities, if you so choose, to address my decision through exceptions, and then there are also further avenues beyond that. So that's the path after today. I can't make any promises about when the recommended decision will come out, but I'm going to work on it diligently and get it out as soon as reasonably possible in light of my schedule. And also the statutory deadline in this proceeding. So with that, let me thank all of you for doing a good job today here at the hearing, for being professional, keeping emotion out of it, and providing the facts and the argument I need in order to make an informed decision. So let me thank you again and say that we're adjourned.
Thank you, Yanar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.